the Irish setter who hated being brushed. Now, if you shop through any of the links in the video description below, I will get a commission at no extra cost to you, and by subscribing to the channel, both will help. Thank you. So this is Ted, who absolutely hated being brushed by his owners. This was nearly 2 years ago now. This video now is Ted at 3 years old. When he came to me, when he was about a year old, the owners were struggling to brush him. And what was happening is Ted was growling, and he meant it when he was growling, at the owners when they went to brush him. Now, the owners previously have had Irish setters, so they are quite familiar with the breed. I've had the breed, or have had a lot to do with the breed over 40 years, which is the reason why I took Ted on. I've got lots and lots of lovely, nice dogs for grooming. I don't need to take nasty dogs on. But with having so much experience with Irish setters, I took Ted on. His breeder recommended me to his owners, and I didn't actually believe how bad Ted was until I started grooming him. This was a year ago, and he really did mean it. If the muzzle was not on, I do think he would have bit me when I tried to groom him. Okay, the video is not a how to brush your dog when it's nasty video, because every dog is different, and every nasty dog will be different and needs assessing as to, well, what's wrong with the dog. Why is the dog being nasty when you want to brush it, for a start, as to what you're going to do with the dog. When it came to Ted, when I first started Ted back when he was a year old, my thoughts were, number one, am I even going to take this dog on? Because I knew how bad he was. Number two, do I suggest a sedative? Now, by the dog of his size, who was 35 kilos at a year old, by that dog going on a sedative, you've got nothing more than a big floppy dog to try and groom. That is if the vet will allow a dog out of his size out sedated. If you sedate a dog of the size of Ted, you're going to need two people just to carry the dog in. You need to turn the dog, because the dog can't stand up. Right, that is one option, and that for me was not an option. I just had to assess the dog and think, right, the owners already knew if the dog, well, how bad he was, that if he wasn't sorted out in one way or another, he was going to have to be put to sleep. And that is the reality of a dog, what has somehow been allowed to get away with it. The owners will admit they were very, very, not soft, but they spoilt the dog. They did spoil the dog, and you are allowed to spoil your dog, but the dog needs to know that, well, no means no, and you should be in charge of your dog. Now, 2 years later, or even a year and a half later, the owners of this dog can now brush the dog without a muzzle on, just after 3 grooming sessions with me. The first one was only an hour long. The second one was an hour long, and the third one, we managed to bath him as well. It was about an hour and a half. And after that, with the owner working with the dog as well, they're pretty much back to normal at home with the dog, or how the dog should be. So what I did with Ted originally was, I was very firm. I've had a lot of experience with setters. Setters are a big dog, and you have to be firm. You don't have to beat the dog up, shout, scream, put an electric collar on and zap the dog, none of that. But you do have to be firm. And I say, it's not a how to groom the dog when it's nasty. In the case of Ted, I was very firm. I used my voice. When the dog growled at me, I told him off, basically, no. And I did not stop. The dog got no breaks, he got no treats. He did as I said, when I said, and I almost broke the dog and dropped him down a peg or 10. Because at a year old, he'd proper got on his high horse as to, you're not doing nothing to me, grooming-wise. We've got to flip that somehow. And I say, it is not a how-to If you've got if your own dog is nasty, whatever the breed, I suggest to start with, you look at what type of brush you're using, because you might actually be hurting the dog with the brush what you're using, which is why the dog is growling. Get a muzzle, a decent muzzle, and you're going to need to restrain the dog as well. And then, the worst place to be with a dog is scared of it. If you were scared of your own dog, that's just a bad place to be, full stop. That is a bit ridiculous, really. If you're scared of your own dog, something really needs sorting out. For whatever the issue may be, whether that's the dog sitting on the chair, won't let you sit on the chair, is growling, it really does need sorting out. Especially when the dog is a year old, how he was, you've got time to turn it all round. You really have. On the third session I had with Ted, I didn't get one single growl out of him, which was really, I was quite impressed with. But what's more impressive is the fact that the owners now can brush their own dog and they don't have to put the muzzle on. That I'm actually impressed with, really am, because that is progress for the owners. The dog does not have to be sedated. He has not had to be put to sleep. So my main tips from this is to just do not reward bad behaviour. If a dog is growling at you, you don't stand there giving it a treat or a sausage to shut it up, because it's going to think that's by growling and getting rewarded is the way forward, isn't it? It's like a naughty kid at school. If they end up at the headmistress or headmaster's classroom or office and they're told to sit down and eat a bag of sweets, well, they're going to keep doing it, aren't they? It's exactly the same with the dog. If it's naughty, it gets nothing. It gets told off. Either put them in a separate room, stick them in a cage, treat the dog like a dog. And Ted, well, I will not be taking the muzzle off, because I know how bad he was, and I'm not taking the muzzle off, but I don't get any growls, and we're doing really well with him, making progress. He can actually have his hair cut, the mats are cut out, and then the owner can brush the normal coat. So that's Ted and his progress.